In this lesson, we're going to look at runes. We use the word read and the word write all the time, but did you know that both of these words link back to runes? Because the word read comes from ridan, which meant to read runes, and the word write comes from ritan, which meant to write with runes. So let's have a look what runes are. Runes are letters, and they form an alphabet of their own. So there were a number of different versions of the runic alphabet, depending on which country you were in. But it's the alphabet that was used to make marks and to write and leave messages before we had the Latin alphabet. So before we had letters that we recognise today, these are the letters that were used by people to leave messages. So the word rune, interestingly enough, translates as a secret or a mystery. So there's something quite interesting there in the sense that the letters, maybe you would associate them with revealing a secret or solving a mystery. But in some ways it's meant both ways, because runes were also used in religious ceremonies. They had religious meaning, each of them. And also there were charms and spells, so they weren't just letters. So in this sense, runes have this kind of sense of mystery and a sense of secrecy, because whilst they can be used to leave a message, they were also associated with magic. Even more interestingly, that is why to spell, as in to spell a word, and a spell, as in a magic spell, are the same word in English. Because originally, to spell words, sometimes you were casting an actual spell. So somebody in an Anglo-Saxon prison, for example, if he put the right runes in the right order, he could magic himself out of his prison cell. So interesting fact, to spell and a spell originally were associated with the same thing. Imagine if every time you wrote using our letters, you were casting a spell. Cool. Runes were named, so each letter, rather than just having A, B, C, D, they each had a name, which you'll see in a moment, such as joy. So this one that looks a little bit like a P, a very angular P, is known as joy. The runes were made of straight lines, which, if you think about it, it's very logical, but it made them easier to carve. So they would have been carved into wood or carved into stone. So if you wanted to leave a message of ownership perhaps on something, you would carve it on. Also on gravestones, runes would be carved into gravestones to tell people who was in that particular place of rest. So here's the alphabet. Here is the runic alphabet. It's called Futhark because of the first letters. So if you have a look, you've got F-U, Th-O-R-C. So it's called Futhark for that reason. So these are the runic letters. You've got lots of different representations there. One little exercise that you can do, that we always do in Year 7, is if you write your name in runes, you can get a little phrase that perhaps could suggest a story to your name. So if I do mine, for example, my first name is Joe, so I would be looking to see on the second row down, the third one in. Joe, J, means year, apparently. So my first letter means year. And then if I look for O, that's up here on the top row, O means mouth. So my name is something to do with year, mouth, year of the mouth, mouth of the year. I do talk a lot, ramble on, as you can hear. So you can do that with your name. Have a look at the words that make up the letters of your name in the runic alphabet, and maybe you can create yourself a little story behind your name. Now then, the first task that you have on your classroom is to have a look at some of the lines from the poem Beowulf. Now we'll look at Beowulf together. I know a lot of you have studied it in previous school, so I know those of you at Beal Valley School, you definitely did it in year 5. But we'll have a look at it in a bit more detail. But first, using the runic alphabet, looking at the sheet that's on your classroom, I want you to see if you can translate the lines from the poem. So you've got the alphabet on the sheet and you've got this little message and another one, and I want you to see if you can translate them. So write out what these messages say in modern letters, and then you will be able to read the message. Now your final task for this week is, I want to challenge you to write a message of your own using the runic alphabet. So write a message in runes, and then once you've done it, take a picture of it and put it on your class stream. So when you go into your classroom, you've got the assigned work list, but there's also your class stream. Now normally we don't tend to use those because otherwise it can turn into a bit of a chat room, but on this occasion I would like you to bombard your class stream with pictures of your runic messages, and then you can see if your classmates can figure out what the message says. Therefore, it needs to be appropriate, it needs to be friendly, it needs to be sensible. So make sure it's a sensible message, but create it and then put it on your class stream. You could be very creative with this. You could use pen and paper if you want, or you could use other materials. So maybe you could emulate, you could copy what the Anglo-Saxons would have had to do and use stones or sticks, or maybe you could even do a bit of carving if you've got the tools and the inclination. You could use sand, you could use soil, paints. Be creative. So think of a message that you'd be happy to share with your classmates, create it in runes, and then take a picture and put it on your class stream. Brilliant. Enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you soon.